Good evening. Thank you so much to everyone for being here on this very special night, debate night. Uh, I don't know about you, but I am extremely excited to see Governor Walz stand on stage next to JD Vance tonight. Uh, and I'm really excited to be doing a special organizing call in the lead into the debate. As a reminder for folks who've been on these or maybe haven't been, we do these calls because we want to give folks an opportunity to get into action. The idea behind these is essentially to get folks fired up, help folks learn something, thanks in part to our partners at the National Democratic Training Committee, and hear about potential volunteer opportunities that exist out there. Tonight, we're going to hear from some awesome folks. You're going to get a really great training in digital calls to action from Peter at the National Democratic Training Institute. And you've also got Sean Werner, who is the organizing and political director at Sister District, who's going to talk about how to get involved in state legislative races, something near and dear to my heart as someone who founded an organization that does down ballot work. You probably saw in the email that we were supposed to have Lance Bass tonight, and while Peter is wearing a really awesome sweater, he is not Lance Bass. Lance had to do a last-minute shoot, which you'll end up seeing on the AMAs if you tune in to watch them. And he will be joining us for a future call, so apologies that he's not on tonight. Before we launch in, there's a QR code on your screen. If you take out your phone and scan it, you'll be able to fill out a form, and that will allow us to keep you up to date on the latest volunteer activities that we've got going on through our partners at the Kamala Harris campaign, Sister District, Swing Left, and others. And without further ado, I'm going to kick it over to Peter, who has an excellent Zoom background, and again, a very, very good sweater on.
Thanks, Ross. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, make sure we get everything in the right place. Great. Thank you, everyone, for joining. I'm going to take you through this excellent training we have here on creating effective digital calls to action. But first off, I should introduce myself. My name is Peter Enich. I use he and him pronouns. I'm based out of Washington, D.C., but originally from the crucial Waukesha County in Wisconsin. I've been training with NDTC since 2021, have had a number of jobs in the digital space with a slight focus on digital advertising. Presently, I'm with a digital ads company called Electica, and we specialize in making some big campaign technologies available to even the smallest local races. So with that, I will get us started. A quick look at the training series that this training is a part of. Coming up next week, we're going to have tips for effective door-to-door canvassing. So stay tuned for more on that, as well as a couple extra fun trainings that are going to help you get involved in this year's election. Great. So to start us off, two main objectives. Number one, we're going to be discussing how to convince people to take action in support of a campaign, whether it's presidential or school board. And then number two, we're going to be creating calls to action that will help to move others in our networks to vote, to volunteer, and donate. So as any good training does, we're going to start out with an icebreaker. So please find the chat in YouTube in the stream and tell us maybe where you're from, as well as what kinds of information about voting and elections you think are most important to be sharing with your networks, whether online or peer-to-peer. I'm going to wait a couple minutes here just to get some responses that we can quickly highlight. And with that, we can continue. Great. We've got some folks from Kentucky, from Chicago. Love Chicago. Michigan, I'm sure it's great. I'm just kidding. We love Michigan. Yeah, so some things that we might be highlighting to our networks, to our family and friends, deadlines. Deadlines are important. They're different across the states. They're different for various types of voting, for registration. Um, Naming the various ways that you can vote. Again, really dependent on the state, but whenever possible, and we can help our friends and family get the information they need on voting early, on getting absentee voting, and getting access to rides to the polls. Making sure that people are prioritizing having a vote plan, knowing when in the day they're going to go vote if they are going to vote on election day. Helping to make a plan with family members, always very helpful. I know I've had a lot of success with that with my family and making sure that they are going to vote. Uh, Great. Okay, yeah, all good responses here. Um, let's continue with some of our call to action content. Starting off with engaging our networks digitally. So a common theme from this training series so far has been the importance of activating your existing personal networks. We know that one of the most effective ways to convey information about elections is through word of mouth from trusted friends and family. So think of all the ways you already readily connect with others in your life. It's so important to reach out to your network and not remain silent, especially this year. And especially if your network overlaps with areas and communities that are high priorities for mobilization or for volunteering for the presidential election and local races that may just impact the national balance of power. So we've got like dual goals for this digital outreach that are very related to each other, building community and motivating action. We want to keep these goals in mind when we're determining what to share, with who we're sharing, and on which platforms we're sharing these things. So again, like these are very related. Building community is giving ourselves an opportunity to provide that chance for people in our networks to be part of the social experience that is campaigning and organizing your community. Motivating action is part of that. Beyond just providing a seat at the table, we're providing things for people to do that will support the campaign, that are going to support the movement as we get closer to the election. So the call to action is really the means by which we're doing that. Calls to action are motivating words to get people to take the actions that we need them to do to help move things forward. Last week, we discussed the importance of making asks. Calls to actions are really just the prompts for people to do whatever specific thing we need them to. So here are some examples of common specific actions that we might be asking people to take. Number one, join. This is a recruiting ask. We're asking people to join the campaign, to attend an upcoming volunteering event, to reach out to their networks on your behalf. We also have sharing. This is the core of social networks, right? We're asking people to repost, retweet, reblog if you're using Tumblr. We're asking people to be excited about the thing that we're saying and convey their excitement to others. Then we have volunteering, also like committing to taking an action. We're sharing volunteer sign-up links. We're posting to tell people about their volunteering networks and experiences in the past. Then we have vote. Vote is maybe the most obvious of these calls to action. Like when we're dealing with elections, that is the thing that we need people to do. So we've talked a lot about this in past sessions, but a lot of times voting is not the most immediate thing that we can ask people to do. And it's not also the best thing to ask some people. Uh, we can all think of our super volunteers, maybe all of you on this call now. You don't need to be told to vote, but maybe you are the right target for a donation ask. So this next piece here for donating, we've all seen this. We're looking at asking people for usually low dollar fundraising asks through Act Blue links, things like that that can be reshared, and is a specific act in the form of giving financial support to the campaign. This is often the hardest to ask, especially of friends and family. And it's not for everyone, but a great way to reframe this, I think, is thinking about how important it is to give people some sort of form of action that they can take if they are uncomfortable with other forms of action, like calling or canvassing. This is just as valid as those things are. And it is important to be asking when appropriate. Great. So here we have a digital call to action asking people to canvass. We have Stacey Abrams tweeting, GOTV weekend is about reaching into communities across Georgia to let folks know why this election matters and why their vote is so important. Every door knock and every conversation with a voter brings us one step closer to victory. Sign up to volunteer with a link. So in a moment, we're going to break down the specific features of this brief but intentional communication that sets it up for success. I would say on the surface, this looks like a generic election-related tweet, but deeper down, this was crafted for a specific purpose. It's direct, it's easy to follow, it makes clear what fulfilling the call to action will accomplish, and it has a link that is a one-click opportunity for action. And then notice in this example also that Stacey Abrams alludes to her personal why, that like that important emotional connection, which in this case is informing and empowering communities in Georgia. So to connect this back to our conversation last week about sharing your personal story, let's just reflect on how you could use your own story to frame sharing a volunteer sign-up link like this one with your social media networks. Cool. Let's get into our next section here, the steps for crafting that call to action. So there are a few key considerations to keep in mind when we're composing this effective call to action. We're not just, saying whatever we want, skipping right to the ask. We do want to highlight a few things if possible. Number one being the individual contribution to a larger team. This is about the building of the community, right? Is there a specific goal that can be achieved by completing the ask? Will your network or the recipients of the message feel like they're invited to be part of something bigger? People want to know that their actions matter, that their actions will impact the campaign. If you ask people to join you at one of these calls, preview for them the kinds of things we're learning and how they can be applied to the real world. I might try to recruit someone to come to one of these trainings and say, hey, you've been asking about how to get involved. Here's one way. You can learn how to better knock doors in your community or something like that. Number two, a substantive impact. This is related to the previous one, but we want to be thinking about how taking action can support the larger goals of this campaign. If someone takes even a small action, they want to understand why and how it's going to have a bigger impact on the campaign in concrete terms. One way that we see this action, particularly with donation asks, if we want people to give $5, we should give them an idea about what that $5 is going to go to and why is it important. This $5 is going to help us buy clipboards for our canvassing team. It's going to go into some Facebook ads that are going to help us recruit more volunteers. Third here is a deadline. We want to include an imminent deadline whenever possible to help us describe why this action is important and to convey a sense of urgency. This is the same principle as a sale at a furniture store, right? Like we're just providing urgency to selling a candidate and a movement and a spot on the team instead of just a sofa at the Labor Day sale. So lastly, a way to be easily achievable is very important. We want to think about if the ask that we have is a low enough bar that it can get someone engaged for the first time. Is it easy for someone to click the link in your social post? How many steps is the process that we're asking them to take if it's an online form? As streamlined as can be is obviously as like the optimal mode here. As with the story of self model also that we reviewed last week, we want to emphasize clarity and achievability of the ask. We can really do anything if we know how long it's going to take. So often something we'll do is say, fill out this form, it's just going to take 2 minutes. That really helps to frame both the urgency, but also the achievability of that ask. So how do we get people to take action and that first step to being involved? We write posts that let our audience know what we want them to do with the information needed, the call to action. So let's go over some best practices for written calls to action. Number 1 is to be direct. A good call to action is direct in both the words used, the length, the construction of the sentence. We want to be using active verbs and an active voice and avoid extraneous language or justifications. So for example, we might want to say, click here to donate $5 to the campaign, rather than, could you please consider donating to the campaign at some point? The first one is going to work a lot better and is going to help the person you are addressing make a decision a lot easier. Number 2 is to be specific. We want to ask for one thing clearly and concisely. Don't hedge by making vague requests or multiple asks that don't allow supporters to give the campaign the thing that they need the most. So for example, don't ask, can you support the campaign by volunteering or donating today? Instead, we want to be straightforward and ask them for what you need. Join me for phone banking this Saturday morning and help us get the word out to our community about the upcoming election. That's a much more straightforward and specific ask. Third, very important, we want to be credible, right? Like we don't want to be asking for things that are obviously not possible. So for example, don't claim that a $25 donation is going to end gerrymandering in your state. Give us $5 now or all hope is lost. That's both vague and not credible. Instead, we want to lay out what the campaign is going to do with the human capacity, the time that we're donating, or the money that we're asking for. So for example, we might want to say, join me in giving just $5 that will directly support the campaign's ability to supply canvassers with the tools they need to talk to voters in our community. This is credible, it's reasonable, it's specific. Fourth is the urgency. We want to convey a sense of urgency because if someone does not click that link or that button right away, they likely will not ever come back to it. So this is about when we have someone's attention, we need to take advantage of that moment and make our ask. Otherwise, they will move on. We all have very busy lives, and there are plenty of links that I get in my texts that I don't click, and I'm not going back and going through my texts to click on them later. So having that urgency, beginning your call to action with a strong, active, clear verb construction can really help to set that tone of action and immediacy. The sign up, volunteer, donate now, those are all what we're going for with urgency. And lastly, be personal, right? Personalization usually makes for a stronger ask. It's always a good idea to, if we're doing email marketing or email donations, we segment the list to maybe cut it down by geography. So we're only asking people in Wisconsin for donations to help the Wisconsin campaign. Maybe we're segmenting it by previous donation amount. So it's easier to ask small amounts of money from people who have given small amounts before. The same thing goes here. We can personalize this to each of our networks, for instance. Maybe we don't think of it in such rigid terms when we talk to our friends and family, but we all have separate group chats for various different constituencies in our lives. And making your message personalized to that maybe family chat is going to be different than the type of personalization and language you might use in your college friends chat. So this is making it sound very clinical and just very rigid, but it's important to call out why we construct things and calls to actions in this way. Great. Okay, so let's move on to an example post. I'm going to read through this, and then we're going to point out each part as we build towards that call to action. So first, just reading through the whole thing. I just dropped my ballot in the mail. That's one more vote for sane and competent leadership. I know it's cliche to say every vote matters, but after learning that Wisconsin has been decided by less than 1 point in almost every election since 2000, I genuinely believe it. Request your ballot here before the October 31st deadline at this link, and let's put Wisconsin beyond all doubt for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. So to break this down, that first section here, it's enthusiastic and personal. We're showing excitement for the thing that we're doing that we want other people to be doing. Our second piece here is talking about the impact of that action and further providing evidence to why this is important, that the recipient and the reader should be wanting to take this action. And then lastly is the urgent deadline and that specific ask. So the deadline is telling us this needs to happen this month, and this link is the place that you're going to do it. You're going to request your ballot before October 31st. This is going to give a very clear guidance to anyone. We're not asking for them to also donate and to also sign up to volunteer. We're asking for one thing that our entire message is built to support. Now, you might be thinking, we've been talking about social media. This looks like a pretty boring social media post. It may be. We love pictures, right? All of our social media is built around pictures and videos these days. So we do want to include these whenever possible, especially if we're posting on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn even. So these examples that we reviewed were text-based and really just focused on the crafting that message. But if we're thinking about incorporating multimedia, you don't have to be an expert graphic designer to be doing this. So number one, when we're thinking about images, we don't want to overthink it. The image should be relevant to the post and simple. Maybe it's a picture that we've taken ourselves. But if we're thinking about what else we could be using, like in this example from Move On, we want to be making sure that we're using high quality images. The internet's a crowded space. It's easy for folks to scroll past images that are blurry or poorly cropped. Pre-made graphics from the campaigns or from an organization like Move On are great because they're already done. You can be sure that they're going to be high enough resolution and formatted in the ways that make sense for sharing on social media. And the information they include is correct. Images are a great opportunity to tell a story about your group or specific action you're asking people to take. So for example, if you're inviting people out to Canvas, posting a picture showing a group of volunteers or you doing the canvassing, smiling and ready to go, always helps. It helps toward building that community. It helps toward lowering the bar to entry and showing people that it's not hard to get involved with the campaign and to make a real impact on your community. Here's another example of some of the ready-made digital assets that are like easily reposted on your personal social media and are made to be shared like this. You can find examples from these in your local and state parties' websites. Uh, you can also find these usually on presidential campaign websites. Big campaigns will often put out a multimedia package for supporters exactly like this that you can usually find pretty easily on their website because they want to help you share. They want to help you access this information so that you can share it with your friends and family. Because again, it is the best way to share this information. And it should be supported as much as possible. So don't be afraid to go poking around, find some of this stuff on the candidates' websites, and use that to your advantage when you're sharing. Here's another example of an effective call to action on Instagram that uses both text and images. This one coming from our friends at Swing Left. So notice like the positive characteristics of the image. I'll read this out loud because it's quite small to see. It says, get together with friends and family and people in your community to write vote forward letters to voters. Letter writing is a great way to reach voters in critical districts and states across the country, no matter where you live. Learn more and sign up at the link in our bio. So what we're seeing here, we've got a picture of one of the previous events. You can see the community here. There's folks sitting around at tables at a restaurant. We've got nice mood lighting. They're writing letters. They're writing letters to voters in swing states, helping to make an impact on this election. It does not look like a difficult thing to do. We've all sat at a restaurant. We've all written a letter. Now do it with friends. We also have the important piece of the call to action with the link. Instagram is always the most difficult about this. You do have to go to someone's bio to click the link. But generally, people know that that is the way things work on Instagram, so it's not a huge barrier. Great. Okay, now we're going to take a few minutes to practice a call to action. So let's draft a social media post about today's training. Imagine we are inviting people to this call that you are on now. We want to share about a little bit about your experience today, why you're here, maybe include a call to action, maybe invite people to follow Train Dems, take a training, join a future call, or another related action. I'm going to let you take a shot at this. If anyone would like to post their call to action in the chat, go ahead. I'm just going to type one up right here. So you've got until I finish, at least, to write a quick call to action in the chat. Great. Okay. Uh, Feel free to continue writing that and drop it in chat as you'd like. We have one example here. As a teacher, I vote because of my students. Join me in writing letters to voters in swing districts to help make a difference in their future. That's great. So we have, I'll just go back to this previous slide so we can break this down. I really like the formatting of this. So it's personal, right? Like as a teacher, I vote because of my students. Then we're asking, we're kind of giving the impact and the urgent deadline, the specific ask. Join me in writing letters to voters in swing districts to help make a difference in their future. That's great. Join me for this White Dudes for Harris event that will be part of the community that makes a difference in November. Great. It's a direct ask for joining this event, which we can assume will be linked. I will do a very high-tech thing and show you a quick message that I wrote that I will read out loud. It's quite short. Hi, friends. You may remember that last year I got involved with the local school board race. It was a great time. We won. And I knew just how I could be helpful, thanks to some great trainings from trained Democrats and White Dudes for Harris. Great news, though. They have an upcoming training about how to get involved with door-to-door canvassing in our neighborhood. I know some of you have been asking how to get involved, and this is it. Click this link now to sign up for next week's training, and I'll see you there. Let me know if you need a ride. Great. And then we have one more in the chat. I just had a great time on the weekly White Dudes for Harris call. I want I want to do everything I can to elect Harrison Wells. Click here to join the group next week. I just learned how to be an effective organizer for democracy. Join the calls from your device and help us stand up to fascism in November with the link. Great examples. Yeah. So I think everyone's touching on really the most important thing here. We do need that link. We do need that that ask at the end. The way that we want to, flavor this to have, whatever particular emotional hook we have, like that's up to you. But always, most importantly, we do need to have the ask that we're coming for. Great. I will pause here then for questions. Please drop any lingering questions you have in the chat, and I will ask the team to drop them in for my attention in case there's anything we need to address before we keep moving. We have one question. What should we be sure to avoid in social media posts? It's a tough question. I think one thing when we're asking people to do something, like a common theme here is don't want people to get distracted, right? We're asking them to do one thing. There's a link to do the one thing. And sometimes on posts like this, inviting a lot of arguments and back and forth is not always helpful, and really does come to distract from that community building that we're trying to foster. So I would, whenever possible, keep things positive, keep it about your experience and the impact that the action will have, rather than the negatives and all of those things that have been popping up in the last few years more and more on social media. We also have a question about postcard writing. Is it effective or is it too late? I'd say it's too late if you are sending them on election day. But otherwise, it's a great way to get involved. I can't comment on like the relative efficacy of that versus digital advertising or something. But I will say that the most important way that we can communicate these important facts about the election and voting are person to person, friend to friend, uh, and directly to your family. So with that said, obviously a postcard from a stranger is not quite the same, but it is still probably important to the person receiving it. We have a great question. I live in a blue state. How do I best make a difference in the critical states? Door-to-door canvassing doesn't really seem practical, especially. So that's a great question. I will say I got a call. I live in DC. In our electoral system, my vote for the presidential election doesn't really count as much as someone in Wisconsin, like all of my family there. I got a call from the Wisconsin Democratic Party asking me if I could join some virtual phone banking. That's a great way to get involved. I can call voters in Wisconsin from here at my desk in DC. Um, there are plenty of ways to get involved that are not door to door, whether that's donations, virtual phone banking, text banking, all of these things that we've been doing more and more over the past few years can definitely benefit. Same question, similar question about helping out in Wisconsin when you're maybe in a red state. I would look toward the state parties to see how you can get involved with some of those virtual options. And then last question that I'm seeing here, how do we make our posts and our call to action stand out when voters start to get swamped with calls to actions via text, email, and everything from politicians? That is a great question. If I open up my texts now, I have probably 20 unopened texts from various different campaigns. Um, this is exactly why we're talking about this right now and talking about communicating with our friends and family. I definitely see a text when it comes from my friends, and I try not to ignore it. So that personal touch is exactly what's going to cut through the noise, and that's exactly what we need. Whether it is a direct text or a social media post, that's still something that you are communicating within your network to people who know of you at least, and know that you're a real person with real feelings and a real stake in this election. Great. Okay. Let's move on. We've got a few more slides to get to, and then we can get ready for the debate tonight. Cool. Okay, so we've talked about communicating outwardly a lot to people. And now that we're successfully posting and sharing and connecting with people, it's time to push ourselves to do maybe the harder thing, which is to proactively engage with the people who have shown interest and follow up with them, even if they don't take immediate action. Thinking back to our conversation about social pressure in the first training session, a more personalized nudge from a trusted messenger can have a really big impact. So definitely be on the lookout for signs of interest or engagement. So for example, here, let's say we've posted about our recent canvassing or letter writing, and we have someone who liked the post or commented, cool. That's a perfect opportunity to ask them to join for the next one. It's a very reasonable follow-up. So this is a great chance to maybe comment on the post and tag them, or text them directly and say, hey, I saw that you liked my post. That's a perfect way to get someone involved. They're raising their hand and they're saying, I see what you posted and I like it, and you can invite them along for the next time. Great. Okay, so let's just go through the three important takeaways from today's training. Number one, when we're posting online, we need to include asks that are specific and easily achievable. That's number one rule. We're not asking for three different things in the post. We are telling someone what we need, when we need it, and how to do it. Number two takeaway here is to use photos and videos to help to like demystify this sometimes really shady sounding campaigning and personalize this process of getting involved with the campaign. Just be your normal, authentic self. Many of our friends and family members who share our values simply just don't think about the day-to-day politicking as much as all of you do. All of you who've taken time out of pre-gaming the vice presidential debate for this training, you need to be the person that is helping to bring them into this organizing and this movement. The last takeaway here, number three, is on the follow-up. We want to be personally following up with people who have expressed some sort of interest and might be interested in taking action further. I'll just say that people love to be asked to do things. Many of us are just sitting on the sidelines, watching the news, watching the debates, getting frustrated with what's going on in the world, and we're just waiting to be asked. It is your job to provide your friends and family with that gift of an opportunity to get involved right now at this pivotal time. It's super important. People just need the hand outstretched, asking them to join. I have one final call to action for you from this training. I just want to say thank you all for joining, and thank you to White Dudes for Harris and DTC for giving us the opportunity to learn about ways we can get involved and get our networks involved. Enthusiastic and personal. Your feedback on this training is super important to us at NDTC. It helps us create and present the best content possible for folks like you. That's the impact. Scan the QR code here quickly before the slide changes to fill out the short survey. It'll just take you 3 minutes. Thank you. We have an urgent deadline and a specific ask. I will go to the next slide, which does have the QR code again. But again, thank you. Please scan this, do the very brief survey to help us get better, to help us improve these trainings. Tell me what you didn't like or what you did like. We love all the feedback. If you have further questions, feel free to email us at livetraining@traindemocrats.org or just visit the website, traindemocrats.org, for all of the content that we do have on how to campaign, how to get involved, how to set up anything you need to run a successful campaign. I will make one more plug for next week's training. It will be on tips for effective door-to-door canvassing. So off the screens, onto the doors. We're going to learn how to have a productive, fun, and importantly, safe experience when we're canvassing in our communities. So watch for more information on that on email in the same place you found all the great information today. Any further questions, feel free to drop those in the chat, but I will conclude here and turn things back over to our wonderful team at White Dudes for Harris and NDTC. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Peter. Really appreciate it. That was awesome. Special thank you to the National Democratic Training Committee for their continued support and putting these things together. These things are really, really awesome. And honestly, like I find some of these things I know, some of these things I don't. And it's also like a really good refresher for even me. And I've been working in politics for over 20 years at this point. So thank you so much again, Peter. We really appreciate it. just so folks know, if you want to get additional information on how to get involved in your communities, you can scan the QR code that is on your screen, fill out the form, and we will get you all of the information that you need to volunteer. But we have one more presentation tonight, and this one's going to be really good. It's about a topic, again, near and dear to my heart, which is down ballot races. So with that, I would like to introduce Sean Werner, who is at Sister District, to tell us a little bit more about how to get involved in state legislative races this cycle, especially if you are in a blue state and you may not have like a super competitive race. So Sean, I'll kick it over to you.
Thank you so much, Ross. I greatly appreciate it. And really setting the bar high in terms of making a call to action after a training on calls to action. So definitely hope that this meets the need. I don't want to stand too long between us and the chief white dude for Harris, absolutely annihilating Kamala or JD Vance tonight, but my name is Sean Warner. I'm the organizing and political director at Sister District Project, which is a project that was founded shortly after Donald Trump was elected. And the whole theory comes from sister cities. We basically pair teams of volunteers in places that have an abundance of resources, whether that is financial or human capacity, with key state legislative races where we're able to build progressive power in the states. I just want to harken back to 2022, that in Pennsylvania, in a race that was decided by 63 votes. Yes, 63 votes decided one race, and that race decided whether or not Democrats or Republicans would control the Pennsylvania State House of Representatives. And we were able to prevail, and that is how close these races ultimately will be. So the impact that you can have from your local communities, phone banking into districts, if you live nearby to one of the key swing states, going into these state legislative races and knocking on doors, making sure that people understand what is at stake in our state elections is absolutely critical. We've endorsed already 36 candidates, and we'll continue to endorse more candidates that will need those additional financial resources as well as human capacity. We have phone banks going throughout the week, phone bank nearly every day, and by the time GOTV comes around, we'll have over 20 shifts each week. I encourage you to go to sisterdistrict.com/events, where you can see all of the phone banking opportunities. If you're nearby one of our local teams, I know that those volunteers would love to add another white dude into their local communities. And so I would encourage you to go there, but by engaging at our state legislative level, we're talking about those small margins, but we're also making sure that folks who are all very excited about Kamala Harris, as we all are on this call, knows who's going to be representing them in their state capital. Our campaigns are usually less resourced than a presidential, and so the more that we can get our message out to the voters to give them the agency to understand the importance of their state legislative elections, the better off we are as Democrats, the better off that we are in terms of building progressive power in the states, and making sure that we can do things like raising the minimum wage, protecting reproductive rights in our states, expanding LGBTQ protections. A lot of public policy is actually decided at the state level, and a lot of state capitals have rigid deadlines of when their sessions ultimately need to end. So they have to, as folks commonly say, they have to do big things and have to get shit done. And so that is what is happening in our state legislatures. Join us, sisterdistrict.com/events. We'll give you all the training that you would ever need to call into these districts, on the candidates, on the type of people that we'll ultimately be talking to. But we hope that you'll be able to join us. And we can't thank you, everybody at White Dudes for Harris, for having Sister District a key partner in working at this state legislative level. So come join us. But I don't want to stand between us and, like I said, Governor Walz.
Awesome. Thank you, Sean. I really appreciate it. I dropped the link in the chat for signing up with Sister District. We will send all of the resources out from across the evening afterwards, probably sometime tomorrow or tomorrow afternoon. So watch your inboxes for that. And with that, we'll close out tonight because we're 9 minutes away from watching JD Vance get his ass kicked by Governor Walz. So with that, thank you so much to everyone for being on. We appreciate all of you so much. And we can't wait to see you out on the doors. Have a great night, everybody.